Hi everybody, this is QiWiz, and I wanted to do a demonstration of my newest FireFly stove option, which is the fuel port or FlexPort option. This particular stove has the FlexPort, which combines a fuel port and a door. So let me just bring the door up and you can see what it looks like. So this is the fuel port opening, and if you get the FlexPort option, you get this door that opens and closes over the fuel port. When you use this for a burn, it lets you put longer sticks into the fire so that you have the ability to feed longer pieces in. We'll show you that in a minute. But because you have additional air entry, it's advantageous when you're using an open port to use a little bit of a different floor. So the normal floor is this steel mesh that's wide open, and what I would suggest instead is what I call a notched titanium floor that blocks off some of the lower ventilation so that you have ventilation coming in the port. So I'm just going to take the stainless steel mesh out and put the titanium floor in. And I don't know if you can see that, but you can see there's still a fair amount of ventilation around the notches of that floor. So let's go ahead and get the stove loaded up with some twigs, and we'll light it with a little fire starter made out of cotton ball with Vaseline, and we'll see how it works. Okay, so as you can see, I have the stove loaded up with some twigs, and I'm just going to go ahead and light my fire starter now and get the stove going. And while we're waiting for the stove to get going, I'm just going to go ahead and put my pot on top. And before you start using the port opening to load longer pieces in, you can still feed additional twigs in through the tops corners of the stove like you normally would. If you haven't looked at my standard FireFly video, you could take a look at that on my website at QiWiz.net. You'll notice I have the stove sitting on some aluminum foil, and that's so that any ash or embers that might fall down get caught on the foil and don't get into anything that you don't want to burn under the stove. But once the twigs get going, now you can start to feed in additional wood through the port, and you can just kind of lay it in there. And then as that wood starts to burn and the ends kind of break off and become coals in the bottom of the stove, you can continue to advance the wood in. And you can see that even when you're using the port, because of the combined ventilation through the port and the bottom of the stove through the titanium notches, you still get a really good chimney effect, and you still have the heat coming up under your pot just like you would like. So as things get going, you can just gradually advance your wood in there. And you can add even more wood. You can use things that are a little thicker than a normal twig that you'd burn, but I would probably stick with things that are no bigger than your index finger, or even your little finger would be okay. We've got a little wind picking up. I think in general it's better to have the port oriented away from the wind, but that's something that you could experiment with. So there you have it, FlexPort with the door that will close, and the regular fuel port option. Let me just show you a fuel port side here, has a port with no door, and you can get either option either as a fifth side that you can swap out or as a fourth side that comes with the stove. Just make sure to keep them straight and place the right order when you do. The fuel port is the one that's always open, and the FlexPort has the door that will close. So this is QiWiz, wishing you well in all your travels on the trail, and keep it light.